Welcome to FiST Chat, your source for news and discussions in film science and technology, hosted by Steve Kern and Ben Warner. Visit our website at fistchat.com. Hi there everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, your vodcast for news, science and technology topics. My name's Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern for our third episode on this Australia Day weekend. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. Hi, FiST Chat fans. It's great to still be here chatting away with you, Ben. So hopefully we've got something interesting today.
Yeah, well, I hope so. We're sort of on a bit of a roll here. So this actual episode we're doing ad hoc. We've got no show notes, so we're flying blind. But so hopefully we'll get through it. But we're just going to have a quick chat about a couple of issues with Apple that Steve, you mentioned briefly about the PayPal comparison, which we'll get into in a minute. But we've got a couple of other things that we'll go through, which are quite interesting. But the idea that Apple would be attempting to come up with their own version of a PayPal system seems to make sense, really, because they've got all these mobile devices everywhere, and you should be, I guess, able to use them. I mean, there's talk of using devices such as these, like as digital wallets, so to speak. So if they were able to build that into an Apple ID, that would make things a lot easier for at least Apple users, perhaps.
Well, surely it can't be a big step. I mean, they've already got, millions of credit cards through the iTunes store. So effectively, to transfer money into an Apple ID and then use that for transactions would be a simple next step. So it makes a lot of sense. And, I mean, I'm not a big sort of online purchaser or a great commercial prospect. You might know a little bit more about this. But how would something like that stack up against, say, PayPal?
Well, I can imagine. Well, the issue is whether it's like lock-in, like with their system, how it works, so that it only works through their system. If it works anything like PayPal, the advantage of PayPal really is just that sort of insurance against any issues with your purchase. I think that's the only real reason I have used PayPal in the past. Like, for example, you go onto eBay, you buy something, and it turns out, and I've had this happen where, you get a dodgy buyer, a dodgy seller, I should say, who say doesn't cough up the goods or doesn't give you what was advertised. Then if you buy through PayPal, you have some protection from say an issue like that arising. You can raise a complaint, and then in my case I was able to get the goods afterwards, which was helpful. And I'm sure Apple could do something similar. I guess the advantage is if they build it into their devices, then it becomes less of a thing to do, because obviously with PayPal you have to sort of sign in. If you go through eBay to buy something off PayPal, you have to get taken out of the eBay site to sign in with your credentials and everything. Whereas I could imagine that if Apple set up a similar system, maybe they could make it a lot simpler.
What about with it working, say, using near field technologies, or I guess in the Apple case, some sort of low zone Bluetooth or whatever they call it? So you're out shopping and you actually use your Apple Pay system to purchase. Would that work?
Well, they've been talking about NFC for the iPhone for quite some time, and I believe whether the Samsung phones or the Android phones have already started including that technology into the phones. For some reason, Apple hasn't included it in their phones yet.
Apparently they're going to use a Bluetooth system.
So they've got, I don't know too much about it, but they've got a technology that apparently they've been implementing since the iPhone 4S called iBeacons, which apparently is something which is along the lines of this, where it's not just for payments. I believe it's also, the phone knows, it talks to other such devices. So if you go through a store that has similar devices, then you'll get handy information, or maybe more directed and targeted information based on what's on your phone and what your preferences are and all that sort of thing. Or it could be used if you walk into a coffee shop and say you always want your regular strength cappuccino with 2 sugars every morning, then as soon as you walk into the store, then it picks up your phone and sends the order straight to the desk, so you may not even have to talk to the guy behind the counter who's serving you, that kind of thing.
Wow. So I guess that's how it would work, and you'd also get your loyalty points at the same time.
Yeah, or Apple Store credit in this case.
That's right, without having to scan something. So that's quite interesting technology coming through there. I don't know if you see any other uses.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, with a lot of this sort of stuff, I find it a little bit concerning. I don't know whether it's just I don't know if you're in the same boat as me in terms of our generation, but I kind of like the idea of separating those things. I don't need, to have my personal, say, preferences transmitted to the store before I go in there. I mean, what happens if I walk into a store and, I don't want to get what I usually get every day, or I don't want to get this, or I don't want to get that? I'm sure there's ways around it, but I don't know. I just kind of like a bit more of a manual process involved in this. But I mean, this is slightly different in the sense that if Apple is just instituting a payment system to be used through their Apple ID, and there's still that manual process, then I can't see why we couldn't use it, since, like you said, they've got our credit card information.
Well, I mean, as one person that tried to buy a Kindle ebook the other week on my iPhone, a friend's title, it only took me 3 hours over 2 days to finally work out how to do it. Apple's lockdown system is actually starting to become a real issue for me.
Yeah.
So, there are workarounds but I think that they need to modify, some of their protocols. And I don't know how or who does it, because I don't think Apple should necessarily be the people that change their policy when others may not, like Amazon themselves. But I think that all of those groups really need to work out how they're going to work together on this, because it's just not working. The lockdown system now, as we have greater and greater mobility through digital devices, is just now starting to grate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Kindle app is a good example in that when the app was first put onto the iPhone, you could actually buy books directly in the app, and it was only after Apple put their foot down and said you have to give us 30% of every purchase, otherwise you have to take it out, that occurred. And it's cumbersome. Like, for example, I know I've bought a couple of books off of the App Store, the Kindle store, and it's easier just to go onto my PC, so to speak, my Mac, log into the website manually, buy them there, and then go through the process of downloading it onto my device, which seems quite silly. Now, obviously, if you do it through the iBook store, you can do it all on your device, and that's the way Apple loves it. But it's like you said, there has to be a certain amount of flexibility that should be included in that.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. We might just sort of switch tack. We'll still talk about Apple, but we were talking about Final Cut Pro before we got on, and the trials and tribulations in using Final Cut Pro 10 that have made it quite challenging for many editors around the world, from what we hear, and it caused a great backlash when it was first released.
You're saying it's time now, Ben. You're saying it's time now to embrace Pro.
Well, we're moving on. The old version is not the way it's going to be anymore. And with the exception of the way the magnetic timeline works, I find it to be a substantial improvement over the previous version, which is now looking very dated, because I went back recently to work on a long-standing project, and I found it a bit clunky to use by comparison. But yeah, they've got... I'm sure like I was saying to you before, I could probably go on YouTube and, figure out, someone's probably explained it somewhere how to get around some of these sort of nagging issues with moving clips around simply in Final Cut Pro 10. But, it shouldn't be as hard as what it is. And why they thought, that would be a good idea, who knows? But I guess the flip side is that you've got a very fast editor, and it's even on old hardware. I'm using it on a 2008 iMac, and it works faster than the old Final Cut Studio that I was using, and it works well. They've been adding features back into the product, and I think as a general thing, I think we were talking about Pages as well, is that when they went to this whole new version, they ripped out a whole lot of stuff which upset people, but maybe they needed to do that because that was the only way to start again and start from a new code base and sort of go forward. And now over time, they're slowly putting all these features back in.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition. I mean, ultimately, if you listen to the sort of comments Apple's making, about post PC era, you know, who knows what the desktop will be in the next few years. But I think the desktop will have to be purpose driven. So you will be an editor if you've got Final Cut Pro. And if they put those features back in over time, maybe that will be something that Apple will revisit. I mean, they've been famous for changing their mind in the past. And gosh, it'll be close to, it's 5 years now since they abandoned Final Cut Classic, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember when Final Cut Pro 10 came out. It was at least a couple of years now, I would have thought.
Yeah, it'd be close to 5 years now. So, if you give it a couple more years and they put some features back in, they make it a little bit more user-friendly for the pros, maybe they'll win back those audiences because they're, pro machines are certainly awesome pieces of work. And, won't be long before we've all got 4K GoPros and we'll need to have the power to edit with those.
Oh, we'll have to buy the new trash can Mac Pro to get it to get the maximum usage out of it. Now that I think of it,
$8,000 Apple TV to view it on.
Yeah, exactly. Now that I think of it, I think it was only 2 years ago actually that it came in, because I remember we were editing FiST Chat on the old Final Cut in the first year. Okay. And I made the switch, it might have been 2 years ago, and then I went through that painful process of unlearning everything that I'd learnt to get it to work.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. And speaking of just unlearning and a bit more, I guess, on the Windows thing, just to round this out and to change away from Apple for a second, Nokia didn't post very good pre-Christmas quarter, and that's on the back of them swapping from Symbian to fully the Windows-powered OS. What do you think about that?
Well, they've got an issue, and I think it might not just be their fault, because I think their hardware is actually pretty good. It might have an issue to do with the way Microsoft is positioning Windows at the moment, or perhaps their lack of positioning in terms of getting Windows 8, which again is Windows Phone as well, out to the masses. It's probably a good tie-in, that idea of ripping out features and putting back in. Windows 8 was a fairly radical kind of visual departure from previous versions of Windows, and it's interesting to note that they're now bringing back a lot of the functionality that was ripped out of that release. Windows 8.1, if they'd released that initially, they probably wouldn't have gotten the backlash that they did, and they probably should have released it. And from the sounds of things, there's an update coming in April, which apparently may restore even more features back. And then there's talk of Windows 9 next year, which we mentioned the other week, where they're even the start menu could be coming back. Everything we knew about Windows could be coming back. But is that too little, too late, kind of thing? And the Nokia numbers might be a good example of what's happening with this.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it is post-PC era, and Microsoft probably strategically did the right thing, with Metro and getting that OS working across all devices. But graphically, maybe the argument is they didn't get that bit right. And it's funny because you think about a phone window or a phone screen, and it's just right for a start window to pop up in there with all the little tabs where you'd expect them. So if that was what Microsoft was to bring out, for the next incarnation of Windows Mobile, that would be very interesting.
One other interesting point to note, might cause some concern for Microsoft, is that apparently HP put up a new advertising slogan on their website saying, "Backed by popular demand, Windows 7." Which sort of like them having a dig at Microsoft for what happened with Windows 8. No, they still sell the Windows 8 PCs, but that can't be good.
That's not very friendly, isn't it? That's not even April Fool's Day.
No, if only it was a joke. But and they will be selling lots of Windows 7 PCs by the look of it this year, and Windows 7 is still their operating system that has the largest market share at the moment. Windows XP is going out this April, so Windows 7 is probably going to be with us for quite some time.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll wait and stay tuned with that, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we might wrap it up there, Steve. So thanks again for the chat.
Anytime. Always good to talk tech, Ben.
Absolutely. This is our first ad hoc episode. I think we did all right, so turned out okay. Don't forget our website, FiSTChat.com. You can get all of our links and content there. The FiST Report, our new version of the ebook for 2013 is out now, so go over to FiSTReport.com to have a look at that. And if you think anyone may be interested in our weekly discussions on film science and technology, then feel free to send them to our website. So that's it for this episode, so we'll catch you for the next one.